Hey y'all. I say y'all as if I'm not from Tennessee. I actually visited Tennessee a number of times as a kid because I had cousins there for real. Like cousins in Tennessee. There's always like wisecrack jokes about cousins in America. But yeah, for real and for true, I have cousins from Tennessee. Anyway, it is 3 o'clock in the morning. I am not having the munchies, although if I were in college, I might say I was, even if I wasn't having those funny little cigarettes that college students sometimes have. Um, but I'm kind of in a bad mood, and so I'm just being transparent about it. And so this is not a live stream. I have a feeling that I have plenty of peanut and or almond and or what do we call this, granola, well, not really, trail mix, I guess, in my teeth. I have Nutella. I have my beverage. And it is 3 a.m. and I actually have to get up. Well, I don't have to, but I will be getting up to go to church tomorrow. Well, later today. But I have not been able to sleep very well. My body is kind of out of whack. It's really sensitive. Ugh. Excuse me. I found out some stuff about my family tonight that really kind of bothered me. It kind of disturbed me. It was like an association with the mob. And I happen to be a pretty I happen to be a person who's very trusting. I trust people very easily. And so call me naive, or because I'm beyond the age of 50, what would that be? Not wise? God only knows. Anyway, my grandmother and my cousin, who is a dear, sweet friend of mine. I don't know. I actually haven't seen Leslie and Lisa, my cousins, the gals, for, I don't know, since I was in college. I'm getting some sort of message that there's junk files on my computer. Frankly, I don't care. I'm so sick of the, excuse me, annoying solicitations of, oh my gosh, you have a virus on your computer. So flipping annoying. Is this how American doctors make money? For crying out loud. Anyway, I found out tonight, and maybe I knew this in the past, but and I know other people that have associations with the mob, but my great-great-grandmother, Granny Franny, apparently has a piano that was taken from Chicago, that was bought at a Chicago fair, the World Fair. The World Fair was probably held in Chicago. And she transported it all the way, and it's a grand piano, and it has glass. It's a glass piano. It has glass legs, actually. It's a beautiful piano. It is absolutely glorious and beautiful. I finally got to see this flipping piano, which I've been speaking about it. Excuse me, I have the sniffles here, but yeah, since, my father has been so impressed with this piano, and he should be. I mean, I have a piano behind me, gifted, trying to see what the brand is, gifted to me by my sweet friend from BSF, Amy Huntsman. Amy? It's a nice piano, but it's not a grand piano. And she wanted to have her grandparents' piano, her grandmother's piano, find a nice home, and somehow it landed in my house. And I'm glad to have it. Well, anyways, I can't figure out what the name is on it, but you know, I had a boss. Truly, I had a leader, a boss, or his name was Ron Preby from Dana, who was a jazz musician, and he worked by day at Dana, but did improv and jazz by night in the nightclubs in Toledo when I was an adult. So we are not talking about speakeasy Chicago like mob kind of days. Like, certainly. So my grandmother is turning 100 this month, and so I think all the way back to the 1920s, prohibition, speakeasies. What were some of the things of the roaring 20s and then the 30s? Oh my gosh. The style of the women, right? Like in the 30s and the 40s, like the dresses, the flair. And then the 50s. So the 40s to the 50s. I have to think about this because I actually have a pretty good handle, or I did. Sorry, it's the middle of the night and I need to keep hydrating myself. I probably should have hot tea. You know, the 1920s. So I went out to Chicago and took my kids there. I took my daughter lives there now, but I took my older two kids to Chicago. We went out to the Board of Exchange and we talked about, well, first of all, my son was 15 and he shouldn't have been driving outside of the state of Ohio with a temporary permit, which I let him, but I don't think it was against the law because the laws change pretty quickly. But any of you attorneys that really care to kick that freaking tire, go for it. He's 27, just so you know, just in case you need a point of reference and a horizon to figure out what's that called? Like how much time has to pass before a crime can really be prosecuted or forgiven or whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So my daughter's in Chicago. My grandmother was born in Detroit, okay? But, you know, took great pride in progressive thought, right? And her mother was very progressive and very avant-garde, and so, like, beyond her years and, you know, whatever. But, you know, was, like, connected with the mob. Like, I'm supposed to be impressed by that. I loved Granny Franny, but, like, that's not just racy. That's beyond comprehension in my mind. That is completely 100% organized crime. That's, you know, the black market living and breathing. So anyway, this is not live, but I tried to go live, and then I gave up on the flipping platform YouTube that wouldn't allow me to go live again because I don't have streaming or live software. Are you kidding me? It's always pay to play. The poor people will not rise. Anyway, I just Googled on ChatGPT the history of jazz. So you ready? You know, one of the courses that I took at the University of Toledo when I have sugar on my chair here. Forgive me, I did a spa treatment earlier and I have, sugar on my I need to get my vacuum out, but I got some sugar on this chair. Anyway, ChatGPT, according to ChatGPT, the history of jazz is, let's make this easier. The history of jazz is a rich and, diverse tapestry. How you like these babies, Sally, Jesse, Raphael? Okay, the history of jazz is rich and diverse tapestry that spans over 1 century. So my grandmother is a century this month, originating in the late 19th to early 20th centuries in the United States of America. Jazz evolved from a blend of African and European musical traditions. By the way, my grandmother's sister is going to be 98 this year, and I honestly think that 2 of them are trying to compete to who's going to stay alive the longest. If you only saw the 2 of them compete when it came to a jigsaw puzzle, you would know what I mean. I mean, that being said, they go to bed at like 6 o'clock in the evening and start watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. But anymore with AI, who needs Jeopardy? Okay, sorry. No disrespect to Wheel of Fortune, of course, and of course, Jeopardy. Okay. The history of jazz is rich and diverse. Spans over a century. Yada, yada, yada. Originating in the late 19th to early 20th century in the U.S., jazz evolved from a blend of African and European music tradition. Are you ready? Are you set? Here's a concise overview as per ChatGPT. Roots in African traditions. Jazz has deep roots in American African musical tradition, incorporating elements such as improv, syncopation, call and response. Oh my gosh, that's so true. Like, have you ever listened to jazz or even like some of the older songs before the 50s, right? Like, what is that Christmas song where they just argue? Like, it's like, I really must go, and they just argue, like, but it's like so like sweet. Have another cigarette. Okay, sorry, that's not the lyric, but you get my message. Okay, have another drink. All right, so early jazz, because in that time it was so sexy and so actually crazy, because, and my grandfather's father was a doctor, but like doctors smoked, and then they were treating things like lung cancer, and they were treating things like diabetes, and yeah, there was not as many specialists in the day. But anyway, so okay, number 1, roots of African tradition. Number 2, we shall move on. Early jazz. The genre emerged in the late 1800s, early 1900s, evolving primarily, I will add words to authenticate and crispify ChatGPT, make it sound more polished. Okay, so the genre emerged in the late 1800s and early 1900s, evolving in cities like New Orleans. Early jazz forms include ragtime blues and brass band music. New Orleans jazz. New Orleans is often considered the birthplace of jazz. Musicians like Louis Armstrong played a pivotal role in shaping the style, with the improvisation at the core. Of course, New Orleans makes me think of the Mardi Gras, and people act like absolute insane fools and take off their shirts and throw beads at people. And I mean women. Okay, swing era. In the 1930s and 40s, the swing era brought big band to the forefront, such as, we should call him Sir Duke Ellington, we should call him Sir Count Basie, and Sir Benny Goodman. Only the British do that, but you get me. I come from Scotland, most of me anyway. Actually, I'm American, but my parents, um, yeah. Anyway, Count Basie, Benny Goodman were influential figures during this period. Bebop and post-war innovations. Are you ready? Let's get set. Here we go. The post-war era saw a rise of bebop, characterized by complex harmonies, rapid tempos. Innovators like Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie. I know some Gillespies. They are very classy people. Charlie Parker and, oh, I already said Charlie and Dizzy. Well, anyway, those guys were crucial. Cool jazz and hard bop. We shall move to the 50s, people. In the 1950s, we saw emerging of cool jazz with artists like Miles Davis, legend, hard bop, which added more soulful and rhythmic elements. You know what I'm talking about. Jazz is so, like, you can't help but move, right? I mean, you don't need to. It's not like rap. I mean, rap is like twisted. It went to the devil. It went to hell. But jazz was considered hellacious back in the day. Just don't be fooled, right? Like, it was like demonized. Don't glamorize it, right? The jazz layers, but some of the most amazing African American musicians were jazz artists. And so make no mistake, I mean, jazz kicks, in my opinion, jazz kicks rap's ass every day. And then not only that, but it kicks the butt of anything African American musician wise. So I'm actually thinking of another genre, and it's not pop, and it's not, I mean, maybe it's R&B, maybe. Anyway, I don't know. Just give me jazz. Okay, so in the 1960s, free jazz and fusion was all the rage, and it witnessed the advent of a marked experiment, breaking away from tradition and structure. And then in the 1970s, fusion incorporated elements of rock and electro music. Okay, whatever. I mean, if you ever saw Back to the Future, that had, like, I don't know, remnants of rock and roll, but candidly, jazz is not going to die hard. Contemporary jazz is today's, maybe it's today's, like, contemporary jazz continues to evolve with various subgenres like smooth jazz and Latin jazz, and I would have said, listen, ChatGPT, I would have said Latino, avant-garde. That sounds so patootie. Contemporary, oh my god. Contemporary artists Contemporary artists find and draw and paint inspiration from diverse influence, keeping the current genre dynamic, fluid, and still alive. How do you like that? How do you like that, ChatGPT? I am not very good at quoting people, even when I'm reading things, right? Or quoting machines. Throughout its history, jazz has been a cultural force of nature, a reflection and mirror of societal changes in providing a platform and we use platform too much. It's become like sort of like stale in my head. Platforms are everywhere, right? I mean, they are just high rises, and it gets so nauseating. Like, can we please just find another word for theater? Anyway, a cultural force reflecting social changes, societal changes, not social changes, providing expression and celebrates innovation. I agree. Improvisation, I agree, and unique voice of each musician. All right, chat. What else? What else? And go deep and thoughtful and ethical. Are you ready? Delving deeper into the history of jazz. This involves understanding profound and cultural and social impact, as well as the artistic nuance. That's like breath. That has shaped this genre. Cultural. I got sent down to the bottom here. Hang on. Cultural roots and societal. It's cold in my house, just so you know. I have the heat on, and yet it is like below zero outside, and I do have the heat down, and I can feel tremendous drafts everywhere, and I know it's because my windows are warped. They're not broken, but they are warped, and I do not have plastic on them. Like, I grew up in a home where, and not just a culture, but like a climate where it was so cold that we had to put plastic on the inside and outside and blankets on the flipping windows in order to live in a house that didn't have good insulation, right? Okay, here we go. Delving, and that was a bit extreme in that my mom and dad did not do inside and outside, but we should have, right? But we did have blankets on the walls sometimes. Here we go. ChatGPT, delving deeper into the history of jazz involves understanding profound cultural and social impact. If you have never seen PBS's Roots, or you've never, here's a book that I just want you to read. Read every word of Roots, and you will be changed forever. Reading not only intensifies the executive function of the mind and the brain, but reading actually exercises our mind to an extent in which I believe that's why my grandmother is 100 years old, because education and reading is something she will not release. She actually loves mystery. She does not like religion. She does not like sci-fi, so don't get too weirdo wackadoodle for her. I don't think she likes Christianity, but I would love to know if she has read any of the Narnia series. Does she know who C.S. Lewis is? The only way I would be able to know that is if I asked her directly, which she would say, "What? I can't hear you." But secondly, if my librarian friend from church actually gives her, I told him specifically she doesn't like sci-fi. Okay, delving deeper into the history of jazz, understand profound cultural. Okay, cultural roots. Are you ready? Let's get set. Are you ready, Brene Brown? Let's go. Okay, cultural roots and societal context. I'd like to reference people like, Oprah, Brene Brown, Anthony Robbins. I like to name drop, not because those people give two farts as to whether I'm alive or not, but just because it's fun to poke fun at those people that are in like the spotlight. You know what I mean? Of course not. Okay, so anyways, here we go. Cultural roots and social context. Jazz roots in African. That's so snarky. Most of you are not snarky. Like my dad says, that snarkiness is like smart assness. I don't want to be a donkey. Okay, here we go. Jazz roots in African American culture are inseparable from narrative. Emerging in a time of racial segregation, of course, inequality, anything that's polarized, by the way. Jazz becomes a form of expression, resistance, and social justice. Sorry. Because actually, the Asian people during that time that were also on the trail of tears, and they don't matter, not to the black people anyway. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry, but yes, like ignorance is not bliss. It is absolute freaking prison. Okay, it provided a voice to those marginalized and reflected in the cultural diversity of America, the melting pot of the globe. Thank you very much to this day. Improvisation as a core element. At the heart of excuse me. At the heart of jazz lies improvisation, which is a unique aspect. You know I'm reading this from ChatGPT, right? Like I feel like I need to not only say it once, but say it every few moments in order to not get myself in some sort of space where I'm not giving credit, plagiarizing or whatever. Okay, at the heart of jazz lies improvisation, a unique aspect. Sets apart from all other genres. Musicians improvise not only within a structure but also dialogue with one another. Its spontaneousness is a form of artistic conversion, convention, expression, reflection, individuality, and creativity. To each performer, like perfume. That's my editorial comment. Anyway, innovation. I know I can be so freaking sarcastic. Okay, innovation, and don't tell me you like that. It's actually nauseating. It's so like bitter. Okay, innovation and individual expression. If you're in junior high, you would like that because, by the way, junior high people, if they're healthy, they are flipping confused up their ass and out their ears. And sorry for all of you that are junior high teachers, I actually feel like you deserve a special award because I would never teach junior high because, well, subbing for them absolutely sucks. Okay, here we go. Jazz has been a constant. It is really hard. I mean, the high schoolers are boring because they disengage entirely, or they will totally engage in conversation with you, and their hyper vigilant teachers will, breathe down your throat if they are monitoring them from afar. Thank you very much, digital monitoring. But yeah, I mean, the elementary kids are the easiest because not only are they pretty innocent, they just are. They're sweet, and they many of them, whether they are traumatized or not, they're full of love. It's called the innocence of childhood. Okay, here we go. And yes, even children that are abused have a certain innocence about them. I'm very sorry to be so negative and dark, but I'm just saying. Okay, here we go. I've actually been subbing in the, I'm told this is where I live. It's the armpit of America, says somebody who out of LA whose father is some sort of godforsaken, nauseating UPS VP. Thank you very much, Jason from the Bay. Okay, innovation. Wait, here we go. At the heart of jazz lies improvisation, unique aspect that sets apart from many other genres. Musicians improv within a structure but a dialogue, which is so sweet. And then spontaneity. If you read Roots and or you watch the PBS Roots, you will see this absolute wit and spontaneity that comes straight from Africa to African American culture, and it is so artistic and beautiful, but as soon as it goes dark and nasty, I hate it. Thank you very much, rappers. Okay, here we go. So, yes, if you want to know, I was in the Bronx in 1990 and did get completely interrogated by the police. Okay, here we go. Wait. As a college student, because I was the only white person for let's just say for blocks, but probably for miles. Okay, innovation. Jazz has been a constant engine of innovation from the early innovation of Louis Armstrong, no offense, Sir Armstrong, to the avant-garde experiments of Jean Coltrane. Artists have continually pushed the boundaries. This is true, actually, just so you know, in classical music as well. If you've studied Beethoven, you would know he is a character that lives on the edge and was quite troubled. But Bach wasn't as troubled. Come on, don't run away. Okay, jazz celebrates individual expression, encouraging musicians to bring personal experience, emotions into their play. Cross-cultural influence. For all of you that are teaching in the universities right here, right now, you know that you have to have a certain amount of artistic, cultural flair in order to keep the attention of the youth. Am I wrong? Okay, because my son actually thinks that the people, and I beg your pardon, University of Cincinnati, but he thinks I'm smarter than the professors at the University of Cincinnati. Yes, I have an MBA. Yes, I have an executive MBA. Yes, I've been across the pond a couple times. Yes, I know multicultural. Yes, I love culture. Yes, 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 but I don't know about that. I probably did not get the 4.0 that all of those professors may have. Anyway, cross-cultural influence. Jazz is a melting pot of music influence, from the fusion of African rhythm to the incorporation of European harmonic structure. And it absorbed and transformed diverse elements, jazz did. This cross-cultural dialogue has given rise to genre like no other in Europe or in China, okay, in Australia. It's just music that has been birthed from the most innovation-driven country ever born, which is the United States of America. Thank you very much. Yes, I don't care if you think Rome was that. Rome was not a country. Okay, here we go. This cross-cultural dialogue has given rise to a genre, although the Romans thought they were a country. Just so you know, they had egos that were larger than the earth. Yes, they did. This cross-cultural dialogue has given rise to a genre, but so do the Japanese sumo guys, those big fatsos that like stomp like whatever. Sorry, I have what do we call it now? We call it a divergent mind, right? Like you are a divergent thinker, so you therefore have ADHD. Yeah. All right, whatever. Okay, so from the fusion of African rhythm to the incorporation of European hypotonic structure, jazz has absorbed and transformed diverse element. I could just read this, it'd be so damn boring. The cross-cultural dialogue has given rise to a genre that is both global and appreciated globally, but uniquely American, which is really not cool because Americans are not considered humble and kind. But let me just tell you, I know so many African Americans who are. I don't know, actually, I beg your pardon, but the African American culture that gets in the limelight, they are so haughty. It's disgusting. I cannot stand the, like, I'm a peacock, you're a chicken kind of. Ugh, I hate that. Okay, evolution and adoption. The history of jazz is marked by ability to adopt and evolve. I think all Americans are considered peacocks, actually. That was CBS's bird. Sorry. Whether it's the transition from the swing to bebop or the fusion of experimental in the 1970s, which is when I was born, Jazz has shown resilience. Ooh, I like that word. Embracing new sound. Like Back to the Future, right? Embracing new sound while maintaining core improv and artistic exploration and creation. Those are great words. Jazz as a reflection of society. Are you ready? Let's get set. Let's go. Jazz is a mirror reflecting the socio-political climate of its time. From the swing era optimism, can you see the dirt on my glasses and the reflection here? Just so you know, these are threes. They help with my migraines. Jazz is a mirror reflection of the socio-political, I almost said sociopathical, socio-political climate of its time. That would have been a bad substitution. From the swing era optimism to rebellion, maybe not, to the rebellious spirit of bebop and the introspection of modern jazz. Each phase of jazz history mirrors the broader societal context. Just so you know, I'm in the middle of reading a sentence, but, conservative people do not necessarily embrace absolute saltine boringism. I hate isms, by the way. It's always the ism I was a psych major, and it's always the ism that gets you. It's the most, if you look up the word or the suffix ism, I think it means the epitome of, I think it might mean the epitome of absolute unpredictability. It is almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and I am dead tired, so bear with me as I go back and stop digressing. From the swing era's optimism to the rebellion and the spirit of bebop, the introspection of modern jazz, historic jazz, and mirrors, smoke and mirrors, the broader societal context, providing soundtracks to cultural shifts. In exploring the depth of jazz, one encounters not just music, but a living, breathing art form that encapsulates the human experience, transcending boundaries and connecting people through its rhythms, melodies, and stories. What I would love to see is for American children to embrace the music, the modern music, like Taylor Swift and Swifties. I am proud of you, my darling. But America produces music, and we must do such a damn fine job of, I need some of this. Nutella might be one of the best inventions ever. As it is, I'm not going to stick my nose in, nor am I going to stick my teeth or my fingers into this, but I will just sit here and sniff this. It is the most cool, it's the best invention. Why anybody thought of peanut butter? Why didn't they think of Nutella before peanut butter? This is actually a cafe in Chicago. I don't know why they haven't come out with dark chocolate Nutella. I'm sure that once I speak it, it will manifest itself, right? That's a nauseating, So anyway, yeah. So thank you very much for listening. I'm sure you're very tired of listening. But if you are from California and you are a neurologist and you happen to be a Stanford professor, I've listened to you pontificate for 3 hours sometimes at a time. And although it's very interesting, I'm not sure that you're that much smarter than me. And I don't mean to be rude. I really don't. I know it's disgusting when women have confidence for some men. But anyway, intelligence is a mark of something. Well, I beg your pardon for being so rude and chip chomping and carrying on this podcast, if you will, monologue and or YouTube channel. I almost like, listen, I'm going to tell you a fish story before I go, and the reason I'm going to tell you is because this is going out into the open sea of the internet. My grandmother and grandfather lived on a lake in Branchville, New Jersey, and one summer my brother and I got to go there for an extended period of time, which was 3 weeks, which I had a 6-week like get the hell out of Dodge vacation when I was a kid, and it was probably one of the best things my parents ever did for me. I got to travel the east coast of America, only half of it. Oops, I lost my ice. It's going back to my mouth. With my grandparents. So we went to North Carolina and Virginia. It's so cold in here. So we went to North Carolina. We went to Virginia. So let's just call Virginia. It might not truly be the Middle East of America, but let's just call it that. So we went from Virginia, went to North Carolina. I went up to Jersey. Excuse me. It was my first experience of traveling with my grandparents, who I admire so much. Now, as far as my other grandparents, my grandfather must not have liked to travel. Even though he was related to Alexander Graham Bell, he could be kind of staunch and actually reminiscent of, sorry to say this, but Archie Bunker. Archie Bunker, my mom was funny because when she was younger, she would say he wasn't really like Archie Bunker. He really wasn't racist, and he really was much more fair and reasonable than Archie Bunker. But as she has gotten older, I have actually heard her say he was like Archie Bunker. In her opinion, both her mom and dad were quite racist and very belligerent, stubborn and proud. And although I found my grandfather that way, I did not find my grandmother that way. She was the most conservative of the two of them. She was a Protestant. She was a Protestant Presbyterian lady who was, they were such a cute couple. They would square dance. They took me square dancing. How cute is that? I am 52 years old and single, but I would love to have a husband that would take me dancing. I would love to do tango, salsa. I know I could handle square dancing, but I don't know that would float my boat. But anyway, it floated my grandmother's boat. And my grandfather would get all dressed up and wear his square dance attire. But her dresses and her petticoats were so foo-foo la-la. I mean, it nauseated my mother, but I thought it was so sweet. And when I was in the presence of that grandparent couple, my grandpa would buy me white socks with lace on it, brand new underpants, a slip, and a pretty dress or something nice. Like, my underclothes mattered. And when it came to my other grandparents, they made sure that shoes were on our feet. I can remember my grandfather, my dad's father, saying, pay attention to people's shoes. You'll know what kind of status they are, if they're super old or rag torn, or let's just say old and worn, right? I've read so many books, but some of my favorites are written by Jewish authors. I think Peter, is it Peter Sis? I think Peter Sis might be a Jewish, but maybe not. But I definitely love Joseph's Little Overcoat. And so, if you know anything about the Bible story or the Old Testament story of Joseph, you know he had this beautiful and wonderful, fabulous overcoat. And there's Broadway plays about this guy's coat. Anyway, this Jewish author made this book about this little overcoat, and Joseph's overcoat, or Joseph, whatever. And so, anyways, it was just so reminiscent of the Jewish faith, in that, I say Jewish faith, but really the Jewish culture and lifestyle of genuinely not wasting. So although I'm from Jersey, I'm not Jewish. Like, the Jersey Jewish woman is so nauseating. Like, the New York Jewish woman is so obnoxious. Can you please think of The View and think of that woman that sits next to Whoopi Goldberg, who never shuts up, Joyce. And I don't even know if she's Jewish, but she's so outspoken. It's nauseating. She certainly doesn't seem like she's Christian, but ugh. Yeah. And God forsaken Whoopi Goldberg, what a hot mess. Well, anyways, back to this book, and this sweet little book that I read over and over and over and over again to my kids. When I went to the Czech Republic, I bought this Peter Sis book, and I had this like romantic idea to read it to my kids, and I was like, what is wrong with these people? These books are not truly stories that the kids sit up and listen to. I had some romantic idea that the children in the Czech Republic and the children in Eastern Europe are so much more attentive and, well-spoken and or more literate. That's what they want you to believe. Anyway, Joseph in this little overcoat, right? It's that's not the name of the book. It's something like that, though. It's reminiscent of that. And I can't remember the author, but I promise you, I know he was Jewish, because here's the thing, I read the front, the back, the inside, and the outside of all the covers of the books that I read. So although I cannot vomit this out, but like Danielle Steele, my mom would get shitload tons of, I beg your pardon for my cursing, but of books like those Harlequin romances of Danielle Steele, and bleh. I think they might have come from my grandmother. My cousin tells me that both my grandmother and her mother believe fiercely that men always cheat. Is that true? I don't believe that's true, but anyway, Joseph and this little overcoat, the story of Joseph in the Bible, or if you will, in the Quran. Joseph didn't cheat, right? I mean, he resisted Potiphar's wife, I can't remember her name. And she accused him of rape, of all things. And so she was not only a liar, but she was a dramatic liar. And so he got thrown into jail. And his integrity persevered, right? Well, anyway, in this book, it does not go into all of that. But Joseph and the little overcoat, it talks about this beautiful jacket that Joseph got, and how it made me think that maybe the Old Testament didn't reflect the Quran. I'm sorry, the Quran. Did I say the freaking Quran? Well, anyways, the Quran is so the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, and the Muslim faith all came from Israel. Henceforth, this notion that Israel is the center of the world. Huh. Well, anyways, Joseph in this little overcoat. Well, this story is just magnificent. And I know I've got the title wrong, or maybe I don't, but you know, he goes from this gorgeous, beautiful, luxurious overcoat to a single button because he will not waste. And it's the same premise as the Giving Tree and or many of Dr. Seuss's and or many of the, oh my gosh, it'll come to me, the Grimm, I'm sorry, but I can't remember, but the Grimm tales and the fairy tales that come out of Europe. But, you know, candidly, I wish I had more African stories. But here's the thing, when it comes to any story, there's a moral to the story. There should be a lesson. Some of the best storytellers I've ever met are definitely African people from Nigeria. And I have a sweet and a dear and a beloved neighbor who's like, oh my gosh, of course. Because Nigeria is considered like, I mean, there's so much hostile, you know, like discrimination. Anyway, the people that I have literally spoken to out of Africa are claiming to be from South Africa, although corruption like looms around that story. But Nigeria, and of course there's like this whole Nigerian something scam. So those are the big main countries in Africa that get the reputation or the bad rap. But I have a niece that's from Ethiopia, and I would go travel all of the countries in Africa if it were safe. It's a very large continent. But I would like to see the animals there, and I would love to see the people. I would. And I've already been through Europe 2 times. And I could go back to Europe, but I think I'd much rather go to Africa or South America. Although all of the books that I've read about South America are just nauseatingly frightening. And of course, when I think about South America, I cannot help but think about the sanctuary that was built for the gosh darn Nazis. Gosh darn it! I actually am having a problem. Hang on a second. Gosh darn it! Yeah. I can be a pirate, just so you know. Gosh dang it. What in the heavens? I have a sweet little friend who's under the age of 6. She's 5. And I call her, I mean, she is my sweet friend. Well, anyways, she always says, you always say, oh my heavens. I'm like, yeah, well, it's better than what the F. No, I didn't say that to her, but that's what I was thinking out loud. I mean, sorry, in my head. Anyway, I'm tangled in my thinking chair here. It's very much overdue for me to turn off this freaking microphone. So I'm just going to part ways here and say ta-ta for now. Goodbye. And if you've never entertained yourself by reading the Tao of Pooh, the Day of Piglet, or the Tao Te Ching, spelled Toatetejing, do so. You know, one thing that I do not, although Crocodile Dundee comes to mind, I don't think I've ever read an Australian children's book. Huh. I'd love to go to Australia too. Yeah, if you haven't figured it out yet, my bucket list is to hit every single continent. And if I had to actually pass on one, it would have to be Antarctica. And the reason is because there aren't many people there. And I think people might be the most fascinating creatures that ever roamed the earth. Thank you very much. Bye.